Guys, so we're in Unit 8, and this is Lesson 2. This is page 5 that we're on here. We're going to be talking about how to graph a quadratic equation. You guys, like, it's just important to note that you can use a calculator to kind of put in points and kind of graph this for you, but there is a way to do it without a graphing calculator, and we're going to kind of work through that. I think it's better that we do it without one because if we rely too much on that just to do our work, we lose a lot of why is it the way that it is? You know what I mean? It can pretty quickly just become like, oh, I'm just going to draw the same shape I see on the calculator. And there's more to it than just that. All right. So you guys, this third one right here, we're not going to fill in a table of values using the calculator. We're going to just do some math to do that, or some algebra. It's not going to be too bad. We're just going to plug in what we know into our equation and it will find our other values. All right. So you guys, as we are kind of looking through how to work through this, first we're going to find our axis of symmetry, right? You guys, if you remember, we just talked through this in the homework, but yesterday in the lesson, we talked through how to find our axis of symmetry. You're going to use the equation x equals negative b over 2a, right? That's going to give you your x value or your axis of symmetry. Those are kind of the same thing, right? And then using that x value, we can plug it back into our equation to find our y, which gives us our vertex, right? Our x and y pair. So we're going to kind of take that one step at a time, and then we'll work on graphing it correctly. All right. So you guys looking at this first problem, again, I always like to kind of write out what my a and my b are. So what's my a in this first problem? Yep, it's 1, right? Because we've got a 1 in front of our x squared. What's my b value? 0, right? So if I plug that into my equation, I've got negative 0, which really isn't a thing, right? But what you'll see here is that if you have 0 on top, 2 on the bottom, that's just going to simplify it down to 0, right? You can plug that into your calculator and double check just to make sure. But if you put 0 on top and anything on the bottom, it's just going to come out as 0, right? So our x value, or our axis of symmetry, is going to be 0. Okay. Again, to find our vertex, all we need to do is plug in our axis of symmetry, or our x value, into our initial equation, right? This one's really easy, guys. If we got 0 for our x value, what's 0 squared? 0, right? So our vertex is just going to be 0, 0 in this case. Okay. So we're starting off pretty nice. This one isn't too bad, right? What you want to do, you guys, now that we've found that so far, all we've done is what we did yesterday, right? Same exact thing. Find your axis of symmetry and your vertex. Once you've done that, you guys, you're going to put your vertex in the middle of your table. Okay. So put your x and your y right in the middle column or middle row of your table. Okay. Once you've done that, you're going to fill in your x's going down one at a time and going up one at a time. Okay. So as we go down the table, we're going to increase. So 0, 1, 2. And as we go up the table, we're going to go backwards. So 0, negative 1, negative 2. Okay. So not too difficult as we're kind of taking a look here. So if we've filled in our x values, how do you think we're going to find our y values here? We're going to plug in our x's into our equation that we started with, right? So you guys, just let's start with just doing this first one, this first row together, okay? So we know our equation is y equals x squared. So if I want to find out what this y is right here specifically, I can plug in negative 2 for my x, right? What's negative 2 squared going to give me? Positive 4, right? You guys, this is where you have to be like, this will help you out so you don't waste too much time doing this. You guys, if we have 4 right here, and think about our parabola, you guys, the shape that we always see. Let's say this is at -2, for example. Okay. If that's at -2 and it's up 4, what do you think the y value for this one's going to be at +2? Are these at the same height, you guys? Yes. Right. Sorry. Maybe it's just my drawing, but these two are at the same height, right? If you guys think about it, and I'll kind of draw on the board for you. When we look at a parabola, it's the same thing on both sides, right? So let's say this is our vertex. Here's our axis of symmetry. When we draw our parabola, you've got the same thing on both sides, right? So let's say this is my -2, right? If I go over here to +2, my y values are the same, okay? These are going to be the same. All right. So that's kind of a long drawn out way to say that this is also going to be 4. Okay. So you guys, when you're doing these problems, solve for either the top or the bottom of the table and then just do the reverse of it. Okay. The reason why that happens is because we're squaring it, right? We can test this one out here just to double check. If we plug in that 2 for our x, 2 squared also gives us 4, right? To find this one right here, we'll take our -1, put it in. What's -1 squared going to give us? It's going to give us 1, right? So if this is 1, that means that one has to be 1 as well, right? So when we graph these, you guys, we're going to see sort of a pattern emerge here, okay? So let's start with our vertex. It's going to be at 0, 0. So right here on the graph, that's our vertex. If we go backwards on our graph, we see our x is at -1, our y is at 1, okay? If we go back one more, right? So -2, we're going to be up 4. And then you guys, again, parabolas are they're the same on both sides, right? So rather than kind of even like looking for where those points are, just do the same thing on the other side, right? Does that make sense, you guys? We have the same thing on both sides, so don't waste your time kind of working out every single problem and then looking for every single point. Just do one side of the parabola and then just reflect it to the other side of the graph. Okay. So you guys, now that we've done this problem, before we talk about domain and range, kind of talking about that again, it's been a while since we've talked about that. What I want you guys to know is that there's a pattern with these parabolas. What's important for all these problems is that you find your axis of symmetry and your vertex. But what you might notice here is that every time you go over 1, you have a pattern for how many you go up, okay? So you guys just kind of stick with me here. If we go 1 over on our x, we're going up 1 for our y, okay? If we go over another 1 for our x, we're going up 3 for our y. All right. If we had another one here, let's say we do 3. You guys, what's 3 squared? If we were to plug 3 right here, well, we would get 9, right? So if you go over again, you're going to be going up 5, okay? This is a pattern that you guys can hold on to, okay? It's going to help you out a lot as you're working through these problems, the 1, 3, 5 pattern, okay? So we're going to use that as we look at this next problem. It should help us kind of work through it a little bit more quickly, okay? So let's take a look here. Oh yeah, domain and range, you guys. Taking a look at domain and range, do you guys remember which ones are x and which ones are y? Yep. Domain is x, range is y. Let's start looking at our range, right? Our y values, how far up and how far down they go. What's the very lowest y value that we have? Like looking at it up and down. What's the very lowest that this graph goes? 0, right? So we know that our range is going to be y's greater than 0, right? All of our y values are above that 0 point. Okay. And this is the part that kind of tripped you guys up a little bit when we did domain and range for our x's, right? How far to the left and to the right does this graph go? What'd you say? So what we can do here is we can keep going further and further. It'll keep going up. It's all real numbers, right? So it's going to go to the left and go to the right as far as long as there's more x values we can plug in. Okay. It's a little bit more easy to see that if you have a line like this, right? This clearly goes to the left and the right forever. But for things like this, it gets more and more steep. So we don't imagine it going to the right and the left forever, but it does. And it is all real numbers. The way we would write that was sort of our R like that. Okay. I think it'll probably be best just to focus on graphing today. Okay. We might revisit the domain and range thing. So let's just not worry too much about that. Okay. So let's just take number 2 sort of step by step together. Okay. You guys, to find our axis of symmetry, we're going to use this equation, right? Negative b over 2a. What's our a and our b in number 2? What's our a value for number 2, you guys? What's in front of our x squared? It's a 1, right? And what's our b value? It's a 2, right? That's what's in front of our x. It's our middle term. So what we can do, we've got negative b, so negative 2 over 2 times a, and we said that a is 1, right? So we've got negative 2 over 2. That's going to simplify down to negative 1 for our y value, or our x value, sorry. To find our y value, all we need to do is plug in our x, right? So y equals negative 1 squared plus 2 times negative 1 minus 1. All right. Again, all I'm doing is plugging my x right here, and I'm going to solve for my y. Okay. So we've got negative 1 squared. That's just 1. We've got 2 times negative 1. That's negative 2. And then I'm just going to bring down my negative 1. Okay. So negative 1 squared is 1. 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. And then bringing down my negative 1. All right. So 1 minus 2 . 1 minus 2 gives us negative 1. And then minus that last one is going to give us negative 2 as our y value. Okay. So our vertex, we've got negative 1 for our x, negative 2 for our y. Okay. Some of you guys might have gotten started on the graph, but I just want to show you with this 1, 3, 5 that I was mentioning that we can kind of skip over this and just graph it straight from knowing our vertex. Okay. So you guys, our vertex where the parabola starts is at negative 1 comma negative 2. So we're going to go over to the left 1 and then down 2. That's where we're going to start. And again, you guys, it always follows this pattern. And we'll talk about some ways that that pattern changes. But if you have a 1 as your a value, I'll let you know in a bit, okay? So So you guys, if you have a 1 for your x value, you can just use the 1, 3, 5 rule. Okay. So I'm going to go over, up 1, and then I'm going to go over, up 3, or sorry, over from that, up 3. And then from there, I can go over, up 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to draw my parabola. Okay. So again, just kind of showing you what I'm doing. Starting from the beginning, I'm going over, up 1, and then I'm going over, up 3, and then I'm going over, up 5. Okay. So this 1, 3, 5 rule will help you kind of graph your parabolas kind of quickly. Okay. And we know that parabolas are the same on both sides, so we can just reflect this over here. Okay. And then we can graph our parabola along the curve of those points. All right. If we take a look here at number 3, you guys, bouncing down here, is our parabola going to open up or down? Down. And why is that? Yep, we've got a negative here, so we know our parabola is going to open down. Okay. All right. To find our axis of symmetry, we're going to use our equation or our formula to find that, right? So in this case, our A is -1, our B is -8, right? A is what's in front of your x squared, B is what's in front of your x. And then we can just plug it in. So we've got negative B, so negative and then -8 inside. And on the bottom, we've got 2 times -1. Okay. We can simplify this. We're going to get 8 over -2. What is 8 over -2 going to give us? Yep, -4. So that's our x value. Okay. To find our y value, all we need to do is plug our x's into this everywhere we see an x, right? So we've got -4 squared minus 8 times -4 minus 17. All right. Before we deal with this negative out front, you guys, what's -4 squared going to give us? What's -4 times -4? It's going to be positive 16, right? I'm going to bring that negative down. Okay. -8 times -4 is going to give me what? Yep, we're going to get positive 32 here. And then we can bring down the -17. All right. Now what we need to do is just combine those constant terms or those numbers, right? So we've got -16 plus 32 minus 17. And that's going to give us 31. Oh, did I put, sorry, I did that wrong. -16 plus 32 minus 17. Just forgot to put that negative out front. So we should get -1 as our y value. So that means our vertex x is -4, y is -1. All right. You guys, I think this graphing part, I'm trying to explain it the best I can. I don't think I've done the best job at that. So if it has been confusing, maybe just stick with me for a minute as we graph this one. All right. Our vertex is at -4, -1. So we're going left 4 on the x-axis, 1, 2, 3, 4, and down 1. So here's our vertex. You guys, our parabola is opening downward, right? And again, this 1, 3, 5 rule, you're always going to move over 1, and then you're going to do the next number, right? So over 1, down 1, over 1, down 3, over 1, down 5, right? So that 1, 3, 5 rule helps you kind of graph your parabola a little bit better, okay? So since we know it opens down, we're going to go to the right one, but then we're going to go down, right? Because we want it to be opening downward. From this point, we're going to go over and then down 3. And you guys, if we went over again and down 5, we'd be way off the graph. And we can still graph our parabola without doing that one. So that's okay. All right. For the other side of the parabola, we're just going to reflect it, right? Because it's the same on both sides. And there's our parabola. Okay. So our vertex is at -4, -1. And we know it opens down because it's got a negative a value. Okay. So just kind of looking through the different examples we have here, I'd like you guys to try a few on the homework. I think the plan as of right now, maybe go through this again tomorrow just to kind of make more sense of it. So that should make homework tonight. Like, I just want you guys to practice some problems today. All right. We'll spend some more time tomorrow kind of getting this down before moving on. All right. So if you guys could work through those first 4 problems on the homework, that would be great. I'll be kind of walking around to double check that if I can clear anything up. But again, just for today, kind of work on those first 4 problems there.